Welcome to EVTN News. This is the extended segment of EVTN. We'll have the regular segment for you later on in the week, but this segment is an overflow because there were so many news stories that didn't make the final cut to the EVTN segment, but I still wanted to cover some of them. It's kind of like a band. They release an album and they release a B-side album because they recorded songs that didn't make it to the regular album, but the songs were good enough for the loyal fans to really enjoy, and so the band makes some money, fans get more music, it works out in the end. So hopefully this is just as informative as our regular EVTN segments. Let's get right into it though. Pope Francis used the new Italian translation of the Our Father recently in Mass, and the part of the Our Father where it says, "And lead us not into temptation," the Pope Francis made this change, I think, a few years ago, where he said, "Do not abandon us to temptation," and it's very interesting. Now, there's a quote here from St. Thomas Aquinas. Actually, it's a quote from the article. It says, "St. Thomas Aquinas wrote that Christ teaches us how to pray, not that we may not be tempted, but that we may not be led into temptation. For it is when one overcomes temptation that one deserves the reward. Our Lord therefore teaches us to pray that we may not be led into temptation by giving our consent to it, because it is human to be tempted, but to give consent is devilish." So just from the logical standpoint, do not abandon us to temptation. It sounds like, is God going to abandon us? Maybe after we die and we're judged and we're sent to hell, yeah, he will abandon us. But during this life, does God ever abandon us? So why would we ask him not to abandon us? I don't know, it doesn't make much sense, but that is that. Pope Francis used the New Italian Translation. Now, in the United States, is this ever going to happen? Is Pope Francis going to authorize the change of the Our Father, the text of the Our Father? He's already authorized it in Italy, and what would happen in the United States if that happened? Would priests go along with it? Would bishops go along with it? I don't know. I don't know how they would react. I'm sure some would react a certain way and others a different way. Us personally, I know that myself, along with all of the viewers, no one would change the way they pray the Our Father during the Rosary. But if you go to the Novus Ordo, is it going to change? I think there's a decent chance that it will if Pope Francis is messing with the Our Father in Italy. There's no doubt that would eventually filter to the Church in the United States. Now, how can we prevent this? Well, not prevent it, but what can we do? Well, we can learn the Our Father in Latin. That's the best thing to do. Latin will not change. It's a dead language, and this is part of the Old Rite, the Latin Mass. And so if you attend the Latin Mass, then the Our Father will not change at your Mass. And that is the best way we can preserve the traditional text of the Our Father. Franciscan University is facing a cover-up. Father Dave Morier of the TORs, that's an order of the Franciscans, they run Franciscan University of Steubenville in Ohio and St. Francis University in Pennsylvania. They have their footprint in that region of the United States, and Father Dave Morier was accused of preying upon vulnerable women, women college students. So, Franciscan University apparently, he was removed from Franciscan, but the local Steubenville newspaper reported that the university banned Father Morier from campus in 2014, and soon after that the province sent him to one of its parishes in Texas, complete with an elementary school. So, I guess this was not necessarily Franciscan University of Steubenville, but since the TORs run Franciscan University of Steubenville, it is a black eye on that order for sure. Now, what I do want to say about this is that the TORs have very strong influence on Franciscan University of Steubenville. Father Dave Pivonka is their president. He's a TOR. He's going to face the fallout from it, but he wasn't president at that point, so we can't pin this on him at all. But he's going to face the fallout. What's he going to do? Is he going to implement procedures for reporting? A lot of bishops are they have implemented procedures in their dioceses, and maybe Franciscan University will implement more procedures to prevent this from happening in the future. But I think Franciscan University has a very solid reputation among Catholics for being a Catholic university that actually preaches Catholicism. Apparently they have fired faculty in the past who have supported abortion, so that's very good. Now they did get into the virus religion, but there was a skating rink across, an ice skating rink, an outdoor ice skating rink across from the university that was under CDC investigation for not following any kind of the virus restrictions. And so the students at Franciscan University Steubenville, it appears they are not necessarily part of the virus religion, and there are traditional students at Franciscan University of Steubenville. I hope that they're able to clean this up, but for us, we need to remain vigilant. Predators will take any opportunity to exploit vulnerabilities in the system, but yes, it's just a reminder for us to remain vigilant. There can be traditional priests that have very poor intentions, along with other priests that have bad intentions as well. Archbishop Gullickson released a blog post in which he talked about the traditional Latin Mass. I'm going to read you a few quotes. Now, if you're not familiar with Archbishop Gullickson, he is currently in, I think, South Dakota, but he was the Apostolic Nuncio for the Vatican in Switzerland for several years until he took an early retirement just last year. And he's saying the Latin Mass in South Dakota, which is really cool. And so here are some quotes from his blog post. Now there is a lady, and I'm going to check and see what her name was, Ava. Her name was Ava, and she wrote to him about the Latin Mass, and so here's his part of his response. He says, sadly, you might say the Novus Ordo mainstream is losing it. They consider us about as extreme as they hold the dear departed Hans Kung on the left, or so many transgressives who still insist on calling themselves Catholic. The Novus Ordo embraces neither us nor them, but seeks to hold down what they fashion as middle ground. We see it in their irrational rage against people who somehow do not toe the line on virus restrictions at Mass or deviate from their lockstep pattern for renewed liturgy. Many good people are not abandoning the Church, but are withdrawing from the center, so-called, in search of a home. And daily ever more of these good people find their way to us. Our fair-weather priests are increasing in number. My guess is that they are mostly middle-aged and are not personally won over by the Vetus Ordo. These are the men who generously, selflessly celebrate the old rite out of genuine solicitude for the faithful who request it of them, and the people will carry them, perhaps even winning them over. More importantly, I guess I'm looking on my own old priest's heart and rejoicing maybe yet from afar in what I shared with Ava, who wrote in the letter that prompted the blog post. I am expressing my confidence in the holiness of the Church and my hope that many more older priests and bishops will be won over by the experience of the Vetus Ordo. Especially my brother bishops, I would encourage to allow themselves to be carried by the young people in the celebration of Holy Sacrifice and look at the possibility of coming to the old breviary. This is really cool coming from a bishop. I know that he was really into tradition, and it seems like he not a big fan of the Novus Ordo. He respects the priests who say the old Mass, even though they're not necessarily huge fans of it. But they see the faith of their parishioners, and they have the Latin Mass because of that, and it's really building the faith of the lay people and the priests. And so this has, I don't know if you want to call it a domino effect, or an effect to build it up, whatever terminology we would use for that, but it's a spiraling effect, an upward spiral, because we're stirring up the faith among everyone, the parishioners, all ages. It's they say look at the young people coming to Latin Mass. I say look at all the ages of the people coming to Latin Mass, because there are people of all ages. It's a very healthy distribution of people attending the Latin Mass, and this Archbishop, who is around 70 years old, sees that this is a very optimistic article for our future. The Vatican announced a conference. It's called Exploring the Mind, Body, and Soul, and it has a lot of famous speakers. I think there were over 100. I'm not sure, so I don't really know how this conference is going to be laid out, probably online. But among the speakers at this conference, there are tons of doctors, professors, and CEOs. I don't know. Mind, Body, and Soul, CEOs. That's a tough connection to make. But some of the names: Chelsea Clinton, Dr. Deepak Chopra, model Cindy Crawford, and the famous Dr. Lockdown, the most famous virus doctor in the United States. I'm not going to say his name for obvious reasons. Jane Goodall, leading expert on monkeys. Brandon Marshall, a former NFL wide receiver. And Joe Perry of the band Aerosmith. So the Vatican is bringing together people of all faiths or no faiths at all, talking about the mind, body, and soul. Wouldn't you think that the expertise of the saints or traditional Catholics would be the best to talk about the soul, as well as the impacts of the mind on the body and the soul soul on the body and the mind? I don't know, that's just a layperson's perspective, but what I have to say of the Vatican is, dream on. German bishops and priests plan on a special LMNOP blessing on May 10th of 2021. That's coming up in less than a month, and obviously you all remember the Vatican's declaration coming from the CDF saying that priests could not give blessings to LMNOP couples. Now the German church is defying that and saying, well, we're going to go ahead and give blessings to them anyway. This is probably a reaction to that declaration. How will the Vatican react? That's a key question. We're not going to find out. Well, we might find out. We'll see. Maybe we won't find out until May 10th, but we only have a few more weeks to go for that. So this is going to be a very interesting situation on how the Vatican reacts. If the Vatican does not react, then, I guess anyone's going to get away with anything. You'll be able to get away with anything in the church without the Vatican reprimanding or at least issuing any canonical penalties or anything like that. So the Vatican has a few weeks to decide what they're going to do. Are these German bishops and priests, if they do a public LMNOP blessing, are they going to get sanctioned? Are they going to get reprimanded? Who knows? But that's definitely an interesting point to watch. Stay tuned for that. I'm absolutely going to talk about what happens for that, if there is anything that actually happens. And if not, I will still talk about it, but it will be an indication of the direction the Vatican is going to go. This is a turning point for the Vatican, and I'm very intrigued to see what happens. Social justice nun Sister Simone Campbell has retired. The National Catholic Register has an article on that. What I found very interesting from this was that this social justice nun made over $100,000 in 1 year. She is the organizer of the Nuns on the Bus campaign, so this is, an anti-Trump group, and that is what they dedicated their mission to, is opposing Trump. And this is not a Catholic mission, and a lot of religious sisters have rejected Catholicism. It started by ditching the habits, and now it's just a plainclothes nun. They're doing a lot of social justice activities, but nothing Catholic. But anyway, the $100,000 figure was particularly interesting. That's a very large salary for any religious, including a nun. But I also do other research on different groups, and I have posted videos in the past about financial statements of religious nonprofits, Catholic nonprofits, with my analysis. And I found that it's not a very popular topic, analyzing financials for these groups. A lot of people like sensationalist headlines, but they don't appreciate or take time to look through the details, or at least understand them. This is my background, financial statements That's one of my specialties. Any kind of financial industry information. So I like doing this stuff, but I just want to know if you're interested in any coverage of financial information. Let me know in the comments below. I found that a lot of my videos, or I've analyzed some of these financial statements, even if it's been a very short video, it has received less views than any of my other videos. So it is kind of a time-consuming work doing this research for minimal results. And if people aren't going to be interested in this kind of stuff, then it's really not worth my time for me to research it whenever I can't actually communicate it to anyone else. So it's just one of the frustrations of the job. You see throw something at the wall, see if it sticks. And but this is sort of my specialty. I can talk about news all day long, but at the end of the day, I don't really have much of a theological background. I do have a financial background, and I'm not going to talk any more on that. But this has been the EVTN special segment, the extended highlights, you should say, the B-sides of EVTN. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the full EVTN segment, the other news that has made the cut for the official EVTN show. And until next time, we are the laity, and we will not be silent.